Okay, Mihai, if there's no more questions, we can switch over to Git.
All right, switch gears. Go to. So, all right, let's see. All right. So I mean, even this, I'll try to make it quick. About Git, I can talk a lot more, but I'm not gonna go much into how to install Git and how to, because yeah, this is yeah. All right, so I guess Git is really cool. I mean, once I discovered it, it's like the version control system I wanted to use. And I mean, it's easy to use. I mean, once you set it up, it's like easy to use, easy to, fork code, create branches, merge code from left to right. So yeah, I mean, this is kind of like how I went through, I guess, my life. First of all, I was just using folders. Then, in a corporate network, I was like, oh, here's source safe. And that was kind of like check out code and put it back in basically in a folder structure. There wasn't much to it. And Subversion, that was kind of like, wow, this is pretty cool. And then, when I started reading about Git and how easy it is and how much you can do offline with it, that kind of went, beyond. I was like, yep, that's what I'm going to use from now on. So, yeah, Windows, download it online. Unix, Linux, just, I think Ubuntu has it, like apt-get install Git, done. Yeah. And you have Git. So this is, first thing you want to do is like set up your name and like email address on your local. That's kind of like, it gives you your persona. Like when you commit code, your name and email address will be tied to those commits. So in the history, people kind of see who committed what code. So when I did this presentation, I kind of focused it mostly on how to go outside of GitHub. Because with GitHub, it's basically create an account, click create repository, and you created a new repository. And then you sort of clone that to your local, and you work with it that way. Here, let me go through this real quick. Let me close this stuff. All right. So yeah, this is just a repository I cloned, but so I'm guessing everybody kind of has a GitHub account by now. And I was showing you earlier, this is like I guess let me increase the size of this. So yeah, but yeah, this is the repository, with that Python script I showed you earlier. So, I mean, it's easy on GitHub, it's easy. You click on fork and you created a fork. And, this is basically my whole repository. And you can get like a SSH sort of way to clone it, or HTTPS. Honestly, I like SSH because you can just use an SSH key and it doesn't ask you for passwords and things like that anymore. So, but yeah, let's see here. So, but anyway, creating a repository locally, I mean, if you want in a fold, like, or just open a folder, it's like that's all you have to do is git in it. And you created a repository locally, and you can start adding files to it and working with it. This git init bear, it creates like a repository without a checked out copy. So this is good to have like on a server or somewhere where people won't go in and change things, because everybody connects to that. So here, let me create. I didn't even think to. Maybe I can change the font size so it'll be bigger. Layouts. No. All right. I don't know. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah. So, I mean, right now I got a Git repository. I mean, it's Git creates like that .git folder, and that's basically it's where it keeps track of all the like the inner workings of your repository. So let's say I want to create a new file. And I'm adding text and stuff. Yeah, git status. That's one git command that kind of gives you a status of your local repository. And let's say I want to add all my changes to the repository. Git has the concept of like, I guess, a staging area, and it's like you kind of have multiple layers. You can have like your work in progress, a staging area, where basically you can add the stuff to, and then everything that's in staging is ready to be committed. So you can do a git commit, and you kind of do like first commit. Oh, and there you go. It tells me I didn't configure. I didn't configure my persona. Kind of like what I was saying earlier, that it needs to be done. Huh. Now, it kind of So let's see. By default, Git creates this master branch. That's kind of like the first initial branch in Git. But I mean, obviously, you can have multiple branches and stuff, and you can change the name of which you're actually working on. Other, yeah, like commands that these are like generally used commands. I showed you like git add all, git commit, git status, cloning a repository, git clone. You can either use like HTTPS or SSH. I personally prefer SSH, but you know sometimes you don't get that access. Git log commands. These are like it's a good way to search the log. You know when you're like the only one working with your own code, that's kind of your log doesn't get that big. But when you're looking at the log of like multiple whole teams working, you kind of need to have quite a few like variations of this command to search through the repository and figure out where an issue might have occurred in the code. Diff tools, these are mostly for to see changes between two, like a file between commits. Working with repositories, yeah, this is a fun one. Git has the capability of connecting remotely to multiple servers. So if you have like Git repositories that reside on like two different accounts, like you have a public Git and you have like your local corporate Git something. So it's like you can connect to both of them, and you can easily transfer code and logs between the two, and or merge. Pull certain commits from one repository or another, as long as they kind of share like the same ancestry. So, yeah, a few commands like creating a branch, git branch change. And I mean these like git reset and git clean. These are two commands I use quite a bit. I work with, I guess in the corporate where I work with this stuff. We have a Subversion repository, but using the thing with Subversion is like you got to be connected to Subversion to get your updates and see the logs and all that stuff. So I kind of pulled all that down into my local and put it into a Git repository. So when I'm trying to sync them up, I've got a lot of compiled objects in my local folder. So you can use git clean, and that basically just wipes everything that's not checked into the, that you don't have changed or staged, and like that is not committed. You just do a git clean, and it just clears out all the changes and everything that are in your local. So, and that's kind of, I guess I use it a lot because I use like beyond compare between the Subversion and my local Git repository. And when you do that, you kind of narrow the number of changes, so you can easily update your copies. But yeah, what else? Yeah, one thing that just like with any tool, it's kind of like mostly what I had a hard time is like setting up a strategy on how to use it. Because, it's like, yeah, it's a tool and it does all this, but how do you integrate it into your like work routine so it doesn't become like another chore you just have to do during the day, to work with this thing. And the I mean, what I found the easiest was to create like my own branches locally. Like, for example, there's a master branch, and I usually create like a branch that's like a something that's a change, and then what I basically do is I check out my local master branch and make all my changes in it, and that way they're kind of separate from what I'm trying, like the branch that everybody else is working in. And when I'm ready to move my code, I just move my code from my local branch into the only the code I want. Because sometimes you got like your debug lines and your stuff that makes sense to you, but it doesn't really make sense to give to everybody else, because everybody has their own kind of thought process when they debug things. So the cool thing about because you can keep your own branch, and there's like a git rebase command that basically takes your branch and you can rebase it, and it'll basically overlay on top like all your commits that you did on top of another branch. So let's see. Let's say I want to add some changes here. For example, this is my best change. So you can see it's like, it's modified, and these are, it's kind of like in code, like it's like my personal changes that I'm doing to the code that I really don't want to share with everybody else. So, okay, git add all. All right, so yeah, so if you look here, you see like kind of how the history went, like master, and then we got like, I got the master changes there, and those are my personal changes. So let me show you this. Git. So let's say someone comes behind me and makes changes to, that file, like, so. And you can see it's like the changes I put in there, they're on the other branch. So when I switched branches, I checked out the master branch. The changes didn't come through. So let me add some changes here. So, yeah, so kind of what happened was, let me see. I don't have GUI. All right. I was trying to see if I got like a more visually, but anyway. So, so going back to rebasing, if you see that right now I'm missing like the latest change that was done to head. I mean to master. So there's like the git rebase. You know, let's say I want the latest code from master plus my changes on top of them. So I mean, that's basically the command, git rebase master and then master change. So what this says is like, okay, I want my master changes on top of, you know, whatever is the master. And yeah, well, there's a conflict. So git. Do I have a merge still here? No. All right. Yeah. Did it do it? Oh, okay. So now. So yeah, So if you look at the, I guess it did merge them. I was wrong. So you can kind of see that once I rebased, these were my changes, like this test, and then, you know, it basically added my changes to whatever were, you know, on top of the latest master. So it's.
Does that have to be language aware? That merger?
No,
Text aware?
it's text aware. It's like diff aware. It looks at differences, and I mean, you can. I mean, if the same line is changed in two places, obviously you'll get a conflict, and you manually have to resolve it. But the change, I guess, being careful, changing a different line. You know, it's well aware. It's like, okay, there were. So now, if you look at the log, you can kind of see that. I mean, you had the first commit, then this is the master change that I did, and once I rebased, you can see even this kind of like went on top of the change. If you look through, and each commit has a SHA-1 hash attached to it, and you'll see if I scroll back through history here on my local, you'll see that this hash does not match like the the old hash was different, like 55A0D, and you know the hash changed just because. I mean, this is just like a, I guess, a blockchain type thing, you know, because it depends on it. It keeps like the hashes of the previous commit and you know like a hash of the actual changes that are part of the. So yeah, I guess I confused everybody with Git at this point. I didn't. I guess I jumped around a bit. Any?
I don't do that much stuff with it.
Yeah. Well, Do I still have anybody on the line? Yeah, everybody's
If
like,
you
okay.
need help, please hang up and dial an operator.
Yeah, UCLUG's still here too.